Hey guys, and welcome back. It's been officially 2 weeks since I've been out a ride, sadly because my rear tire is done for. You can see here how wore out it is. I've gotten some pretty good mileage on it. I've gotten 4,000 miles. That's pretty good in my opinion when it comes to kind of super sports tires like this. They're pretty soft, they wear out pretty quick, but you can start to see how the center here is starting to look pretty jacked up. The front tire is doing acceptable in my opinion. I think I might be able to squeeze at least another 1,500 to 2,000 out of it. So I'll save that for another adventure, another video, and we'll go ahead and do the front tire at a later date. Today we're just gonna focus on the rear tire. We're gonna get it off of there. We're gonna take it into Cycle Gear, pay for a rear tire, and if you buy them from Cycle Gear, you usually get a pretty good deal on getting them swapped out. The only thing that you have to do with Cycle Gear is you actually have to take the rim and tire off yourself, take it down to the store, and at that point they will swap out the tire for you. And if you're buying the tire from them, they usually give a pretty decent deal. So that's what we're gonna do today. Let's get this job started so we can get the bike back on the road again. All right guys, for starters, we're just gonna break this nut loose here, and it happens to be a 27 millimeter. Now that we got it loose, we can put this thing up on a stand. When you're on the ground, the first thing you should start with is it on its kickstand, loosen this nut, and then we can go ahead and put it on our rear stand and lift it up. All right, now the bike is more secure and safe. Now this bolt will want to kind of fight with you the whole time, and the main reason is because it does have these little metal flanges at the end that are going to kind of make it fight and stay where it's at. It's kind of like Loctite, to be honest with you, the way they're kind of using this to help the bolt stay in position. So we'll go ahead and leave the bolt here, and we're going to take this off with the washer that's inside of it, and we're going to keep all this together right here, so that remember where it goes back. And you can tell now this could just be smacked through to the other side. There we go. My axle out. So there's my axle. We'll set it to the side here. Now something we haven't done yet is get the chain out of place. So we're just gonna slightly move it forward and let it come back down and hold it there. And what that did for us is allow us a bunch of chain slacks. And you potentially could take it out because it does tell you ultimately with the little up arrow which way it goes back in. So in fact, I'll just go ahead and set that to the side there and set this one to the side as well. We'll go ahead and get our chain off. It's got some nice fresh lube on it. Now what we have to worry about on the other side is our caliper is going to want to come with us, and it can only go so far. So by getting it out of its groove right here, which is on the inside of the fairing, and I'll show you that in just a second here, we can get it and move it out of the way. Now you don't want to touch anything inside of this. You don't want any dirt or corrosion or grease getting on your brake pads, and you also don't want any of them squeezed together. So we'll go ahead and pull this tire out. Now, while we still have it here, you'll want to kind of take this stuff off for a couple reasons. One, your Cycle Gear is not going to want to be accountable for all of these pieces. So by popping them out, and if you're a little more careful with it, like I wasn't, you can put all these little rubber pieces here are going to stay with this, and you're going to want to keep this at your house and not give it to Cycle Gear so that it doesn't get lost. They don't want to be held accountable for these items usually. And the last piece we need to take off before we take it to Cycle Gear is that ring there. All right, so we're going to get our tire situated up here in the center. We're going to go ahead and put this bushing back in. And on this side, we're gonna try and place all of these bad boys back in here. And you can see technically, if you wanted to, this would probably be a little bit easier to just take them and apply them in like so. Now that we have those back in, should be able to fairly easily push this guy back on in here. So she's back in, ready to go. And then for the next step, I'm gonna go ahead and bring it in, get this chain lined back up. So now that we have the chain on there, we're gonna move back over to our caliper sides. We gotta get this caliper back in its position. So you kind of have to roll them in together so that this brake caliper can go inside the rim. And if you run it forward, and I'm gonna have my pads lined up ready to go in. And if you remember these guys, we have up arrows right here. We kept this one on the right-hand side so that we know it goes back into the right-hand side. And then another way to look at it is you got these little lips on the outside. You have the arrow coming up. You have these two flanges on the bottom, this flange on the top. And we have not messed with any of these bolts, so hopefully it'll go back into the same position and we don't have to do a chain adjustment. We'll see. May have to no matter what. So we have that back in place, and we'll do the same for this side. We still have these two little protruding lips on the outside. We have our arrow facing up, these two flanges down, the one is up. We'll slide her back in, like so. Now we're ready to be able to shove our axle through here. So what we're gonna have to do is lift up our tire, trying to get our brake rotor within inside of our caliper and our brake pads while we shove our axle back inside. So the first thing is I'm gonna try and get my foot under. I'm gonna lift up and I'm gonna see if I can get this rotor. There we go. You can see how my rotor is going inside. That's awesome. Okay, now I just need to get my foot securely under there like so. And I'm gonna try and run my axle through by lifting the tire with my foot, making sure I don't knock out that little spacer, and run her through. And then on this side, we just need to make sure we line everything up in here as well. As we just nice and lightly tap our axle until it runs through. And this would be our chain adjustment guide's gonna go on, and then our washer. We'll go ahead and put our nut on now. There we go, we got our tire put back together. So now for the next step, what we need to do is shove the whole rim tire as far back as we can and make this chain as tight as possible so that it forces everything back against the adjustment nuts on both sides. Once we do that, we can tighten down our nut here on this side. And once we're done with that, we can verify that we're still in the exact same positions on our chain alignment guides on both sides. And if we're lucky, we'll get to not have to do the chain adjustment. But if we do have to do the chain adjustment, I'll link the video here. So we'll go ahead and get a screwdriver and we're gonna put it inside our sprocket here. So we're gonna force our tire back up against our chain adjustments and then tighten our nut back down. All right, she's tight, still needs to be torqued, but we'll leave it at that. And just to verify, we can see we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we are on that 7th mark there on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side here, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on the 7th. So we stayed in the same spot. All right, we got our trusty old torque wrench here at 77 foot-pounds. I don't have a helper, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come over here with my right hand and push down on the rear brake. And then we're just gonna torque this guy down. There we go. And if you remember from my chain adjustment video, we wanna be at the edge of this chain guard right here. We wanna have our stuff at 0, and we don't wanna be able to pull down past 50. And I'd say right now, I am right about the 50. So I am not gonna do any adjustment. I'm gonna leave it as is. Last thing to do, we're gonna take our little Bridgestone sticker off of here, and our final sticker. Get all this crap off of here. Now keep in mind, these are obviously a brand new tire, and you really need to be very careful on a brand new tire. You're supposed to do like 50 miles of just very nice smooth riding so that it ultimately wears the tire in. The biggest thing from my understanding is they put a coating on these tires that is generally slippery. So the point is getting some heat cycles within the tire so all that coating basically comes off on the road and doesn't make your bike slide around while you're trying to ride it. So that pretty much covers it, guys. Hopefully this was a useful video for you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next week.